brought to you by Thomas Allgaier and Frennis. This edition highlights key LinkedIn posts on future mobility and market evolution in weeks 35 and 36. Frennis supports enterprises with market and competitive intelligence, decoding disruptive technologies, customer needs, regulatory change, and competitive moves so product teams and strategy leaders don't just react, but shape the future of mobility. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're about to take a focused look into the most compelling future mobility trends and market evolutions we've observed across LinkedIn in calendar weeks 35 and 36.
Yeah, and our goal today is really to pull out the most important insights for you. Think of it like a concentrated shot of knowledge, a shortcut to getting up to speed on this incredibly fast-moving mobility landscape.
Absolutely.
And looking at the sources, a clear picture emerges. We're seeing micromobility governance getting tighter. Autonomous pilots are actually moving beyond just concepts.
Right.
And there are some really solid OEM and city collaborations starting to anchor these multimodal data-driven models. It's been a busy couple of weeks.
It certainly sounds like it. So let's dive in. We can start with micromobility and shared mobility. It's a sector that always seems to be, navigating that tension between needing innovation and dealing with tighter rules.
Definitely. It's like push and pull.
Feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And what's becoming really clear, particularly from the UK scene, is this kind of fundamental tension. We saw posts from James Bolton and Nick B pointing out how local councils there seem to be prioritizing maybe short-term revenue over really fostering innovation or thinking about the best outcomes for riders and residents. And they argue this kind of, short-sighted view is actually holding things back. It's leaving opportunities on the table, especially around how cities could maybe monetize parking in smarter ways that actually benefit everyone.
That point about councils and revenue is, quite striking. Why do you think that short-term thinking persists, especially when you hear people like Leanne Gaffney-Berkeley from Lime actively calling for a stable, long-term legal framework? She sees that as totally essential for safer, more sustainable e-scooter operations. Without that kind of clarity, it's tough to make those big investments, surely.
It's a classic chicken and egg situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Councils feel pressure for immediate cash, maybe.
Yeah.
But that stability Leanne's talking about is exactly what companies need to invest in better, more sustainable operations.
Makes sense.
And this is critical because, as Antonio Barbas pointed out, there are significant sort of hidden costs in shared mobility. He did this really interesting comparison. Lime e-bikes in London, their permanent costs versus flat fee services.
Okay.
And he really questioned the sustainability of the current models, like, are we still using diesel vans at 3 a.m. to rebalance fleets? It makes you think about the real environmental footprint, the true cost.
That's a huge point. If the operations aren't sustainable environmentally or economically, the whole thing struggles. But, despite these hurdles, we are seeing that push for operational excellence. Thomas Morinier shared Quasit's mission, which is all about optimizing field ops for shared mobility.
Peak efficiency, right.
Exactly. And Raymond Powell's highlighted Mob's new scan-to-ride feature, just trying to remove that friction for users, make it smoother. Small things, but they add up.
They really do.
Yeah.
And thinking about sustainability beyond just the operations, Ross Biotto brought up a pretty concerning statistic. Something like up to 40% of returned micromobility products can end up in landfills.
Wow, 40%.
Yeah. So his company, Repair and Run, is tackling that directly with circular economy solutions focusing on local repair, integrated reverse logistics.
Yeah.
Basically giving these things a much longer life. It's a vital piece of the puzzle, often overlooked.
It absolutely is. But even with these environmental and regulatory challenges, the growth in micromobility is, hard to ignore. But Milo Alongia cited Nabise's latest numbers, showing a huge 31% jump in trips between 2023 and 2024.
31%.
Yeah, and the Akats Montreal apparently had a big impact there. And looking bigger picture, Prabin Joel Jones and Anna Tutova analyzed Bolt's 2024 revenue hitting nearly $2 billion.
Wow.
With micromobility bringing in a very significant chunk, 120 to 150 million. This isn't a niche thing anymore. It's serious business.
No doubt. But as you said earlier, with that growth come the growing pains. Lars Christian Grote-Molson pointed out the ongoing problem of, e-bike clutter in London. Seems as partly because the rules for e-bikes and e-scooters are different, creating these inconsistencies. But on a more positive note, we are seeing great efforts towards inclusive dockless bike share. Hannah Dos Santos in Raleigh is championing that, making sure these services work for more people.
And really embedding it in communities, too. Monte Watson showcased the Belt Hub in Atlanta, a neat example of place-based micromobility. But what really caught my eye was Nitish Pushparaj talking about developing a wheelchair-accessible cargo cycle with SAE bikes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's genuinely pushing for inclusivity, breaking down barriers we might not even think about usually.
That's fantastic progress.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's move from micromobility to something that feels maybe more futuristic, but is getting very real, very fast. Autonomous and ADAS, the Advanced Driver Assistance Systems. This space seems to be moving from pure concept to, well, more tangible deployments.
Yeah, and what feels really significant, a real shift, is that concrete step Christoph Weigler shared. Uber and Momenta setting a 2026 start date for Level 4 autonomous vehicle testing in Munich.
2026, Munich, that's specific.
Exactly. It's a firm timeline for a major deployment. It signals, a clear path towards practical use, not just R&D.
That is a big commitment. And we're seeing movement elsewhere too, right? Hanko highlighted Waymo expanding in Seattle. That's bound to fuel expectations for wider availability.
For sure.
And Douglas Stark gave a firsthand account from San Francisco, riding in a robotaxi. He noted how quiet the waiting experience is with autonomy, but he also made this really sharp point that while robotaxis change how we move, micromobility still really impacts how fast the whole city flows. It's a subtle but important difference in impact.
That's a great observation. And it touches on consistency, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Riajetha looked at the different robotaxi availability between Phoenix and San Francisco airports. The experience isn't the same everywhere yet.
Right, it's patchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And David May from HSBC offered a very, let's say, sobering perspective. He stressed the big gap between the robotaxi hype and the current operational reality, especially on market revenue projections and limits on, wallet share. He thinks the path to mass adoption is going to be much more gradual than some people expect.
Okay, so gradual adoption. What does that mean for, say, owning a car? Elias Musa put forward this idea. Privately owned vehicles acting as on-demand autonomous taxis, turning your car into an investment.
Interesting concept.
And Lucas Neckerman discussed VMFast's personal robocar, Tensor Auto, aimed at U.S. preferences, premium, techie, suggesting ownership might still be a thing, just with an autonomous angle, not only shared fleets.
Right, different models emerging, which is exactly what Antonio Grasso's frameworks help us understand these stages of driving automation. He really emphasizes how the roles shift between human and machine as the tech levels up. It's not an overnight switch.
No, definitely a gradual handover.
Exactly.
And it all connects back to wider urban life. Berngrush raised a really critical concern. If transit gets cut while robotaxis grow, could that actually make urban inequality worse? A two-tiered system.
That's a crucial consideration. Technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. We need to think about the social impact.
Absolutely. Okay, let's pivot again to EV charging and energy. This is so fundamental for EVs taking off, isn't it? Without good charging, everything else stalls.
Totally. And what's interesting here is how local policy meets the practical rollout. Max Sullivan shared that Westminster rejected cross-pavement private EV charging, safety, accessibility concerns.
Okay, that makes sense.
But that decision also came with this call to equalize VAT between home charging and public charging, highlighting a potential cost barrier for people who rely more on public chargers.
Yeah, that VAT difference is a real equity issue. Meanwhile, Rob Shan laid out Australia's EV outlook. They're really focusing on roaming charging networks, vehicle-to-grid V2G.
Where the car feeds power back.
Exactly, and integrating shared mobility, too. Rudd pointed out that EVs basically become batteries on wheels, soaking up sunshine, storing energy. It's about energy management, not just driving.
That link between mobility and the grid is huge. It changes things fundamentally. It really does. Okay, next up, urban planning, smart cities, and policy. How are cities actually adapting their plans and rules for all this future mobility stuff?
Well, a prime example of smart city tech making a real difference is in Quebec City. Google's AI-optimized traffic lights. Juliet Rothenberg reported they're aiming to cut congestion by up to 30%.
30%.
And emissions by 10%. These aren't tiny tweaks. They're significant gains in city efficiency.
And efficiencies like that feed right into the bigger debate about street space, don't they?
Yeah.
Studies from Montreal, highlighted by Taras Gresko and Andrew Savage, they make such a powerful case for giving more road space to micromobility.
The numbers are stark.
They really are. Cars apparently occupy almost 80% of infrastructure area, while micromobility gets, 1.5%?
Mm-hmm.
The potential for using that space better is just enormous.
And to help planners actually make those changes, which can be controversial.
Oh, yeah. Lanrick Jr. Bennett introduced this proposed Equal Infrastructure Allocation Score, or EIA score. It's basically a tool to guide fairer investment and, crucially, help planners defend reallocation projects with data.
Data to back up the policy. Makes sense. It's about designing cities for people, right? Nicholas Hoffman offered some really practical guidance on mobility hubs, how to design, operate, finance these key connection points.
Those multimodal nodes.
Exactly. And Yannick N's modeling work in Vancouver sounds fascinating, using agent-based models to understand how demand and actual human behavior shape how networks perform, getting a more realistic picture.
On the pure policy side, over in the UK, Ben Hubbard talked about the new LZEV category low-speed zero-emission vehicle. It's meant to properly legitimize things like e-scooters, maybe even self-driving taxis, give them a clear legal footing.
Okay, creating a framework.
Yeah. And James Scott weighed in on needing to integrate behavioral science into micromobility rules to make sure they actually work. Plus, Matthias Weiss highlighted Germany's big digitalization push, trying to get standardized mobility solutions for cities, which is a common headache.
Standardization helps everyone. And data underpins all of this, doesn't it? Johan Hugosen Hallesby and Robert Joseph Martin showed off a new tool, tracks operators' real-time vehicle locations using open GBFS feeds.
That's standard bike share data format.
Right, useful for analyzing coverage. And Karim Diatoubajé used isochrone analytics mapping travel times combined with connected vehicle data.
What did that show?
It proved that for a 30-minute trip in central London, you're more than twice as fast on a bike than in a car. That's a powerful, data-driven case for bikes in cities.
Twice as fast. Hard to argue with that data.
Exactly. Okay, final theme. Market moves and ecosystem. Let's look at the industry dynamics, the partnerships, the shifts, reshaping things.
Well, one thing that's really clear is M&A. Mergers and acquisitions are constantly reshaping the mobility tech space. Raja Eswaran noted this is driven by, sustainability goals, needing platform effects to scale up, and just strategic consolidation.
Companies realizing they need to team up or buy expertise.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But it's not just consolidation. We're seeing new players, too. Maria El Valladegatan announced Yango's launch, positioned as this bridge between retail and mobility, focusing on sustainable urban services.
Interesting angle.
And Volkswagen's MOIA presence at the IAA show, highlighted by Rainer Becker, signals their ongoing commitment to an autonomous, shared model specifically for cities. It's definitely moving beyond just selling cars.
It's mobility as a service becoming reality.
And established players are partnering up. Michael Welton highlighted BMW Group working with Rotterdam on digitally connected multimodal services. Traditional OEMs are expanding their role.
Right.
And a new UK mobility insurance launch, mentioned by Guillermo Campoamor, shows the insurance sector is adapting too, creating tailored products for these new mobility use cases.
The whole ecosystem is shifting, and it connects right back to manufacturing, doesn't it? Ben Grimes and Justin Kosmides highlighted that convergence. Advancing software-defined vehicles, sustainable transport, all enabled by digital manufacturing platforms like Bloom.
Yeah, and that point was echoed at Dr. Philip Wackerbeck's IAA panel too, discussing how case trends connected, autonomous, shared, electric are really impacting finance and insurance across the whole sector.
So tying it all together, what we're really seeing across all these links and posts is this incredibly complex but definitely exciting picture of how we'll move in the future. Data, collaboration, understanding what people actually need, that seems to be the new currency.
Exactly. And if you zoom out, you see how interconnected it all is.
Yeah.
The micromobility regulations, the AV rollouts, the charging infrastructure, the smart city planning, they all depend on this evolving ecosystem. It's fascinating to see how these individual posts, when you put them together, show this collective push towards, hopefully, a more integrated, efficient, maybe more sustainable urban future.
But still grappling with big questions.
For sure. Big questions about equity, about actual human behavior, and that constant balancing act between innovation and, well, sensible governance.
Yeah.
Lots to keep watching.
Absolutely. Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive, new editions drop every 2 weeks. Also check out our other editions on electrification and battery technology, next-gen vehicle intelligence, and commercial fleet insights. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive.